Loneliness isn't empty, it's an anointing. In the next few minutes, you'll learn why Christian solitude often precedes breakthrough and how to recognize it when it arrives. If you've been searching Bible verses for loneliness, let this be your turning point. I remember a wooden porch in a small Midwestern town, the air smelling faintly of cut hay and summer rain, the sun dropping behind the cornfields like an ember slipping into water. I sat there with questions I couldn't hand to anyone, and in that quiet a truth rose gentle and steady. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Psalm chapter 34, verse 18. What if the ache you carry is not a verdict but a visitation? What if the nights you spend whispering prayers no one else hears are the very hours God is rooting strength where others cannot see? Across America, many of God's daughters move through familiar places, church pews, grocery aisles, small-town streets, and still feel set apart. Face after face passes, yet their hearts sense a different cadence, a holy tug that does not let them settle. You smile at family dinners, you sing at worship on Sunday, but at the kitchen sink or in the car after a long day you ask, why do I walk this road alone? Hear this, the loneliness of a called woman is not punishment, it is preparation. It is not evidence of weakness, it is evidence of a calling. When God marks a woman for purpose, He often marks out a path where crowds cannot follow. Deborah stood up when few believed a woman could lead. Hannah poured out a prayer no one around her understood. Priscilla, alongside Aquila, taught with a clarity that outlived the room. God still writes His story through women who choose the quiet, where His whisper is louder than the world's applause. If your life feels off pattern, it may be because heaven is drafting a new pattern through you. Set apart, not set aside. Let that land. You are not behind, you are being built. Comment, God guides me, if you've ever walked through Christian solitude and still believed He was near. Stay. In a moment I'll show you why deserts grow gardens. After the Wednesday women's gathering, I sat on the church steps with a paper cup of lemonade melting in my hand. Cars rolled out one by one, and the parking lot emptied to crickets and sodium light. I wasn't lonely because I lacked people. I was lonely because God was pulling me deeper than small talk could go. If Christian solitude has been tugging at you, take heart. Invitations often arrive disguised as ache. Preparation hides in plain sight. God rarely builds His strongest servants in the noise of the crowd. He shapes them in the quiet where no spotlight shines. Think of Moses in the wilderness before he led a nation, or Jesus fasting alone before He preached to multitudes. Solitude is not wasted time, it is holy ground. In that stillness you are stripped of comparisons and distractions so that God can carve strength into your soul. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm chapter 46, verse 10. Picture this instead. It's 9:40 at night, the parking lot of a grocery store nearly empty, yellow sodium lights buzzing overhead. A woman sits in her car, receipt still crumpled in her pocket, hands gripping the wheel. She feels the ache of being unseen, the weight of carrying questions no one asks about. Yet in that ordinary place, the Spirit whispers, this is not rejection, this is training. Every delay is strengthening her patience. Every unanswered prayer is teaching her trust. A motion sensor clicks. Half the lights go dark. The security guard nods as he passes, unaware your heart is carrying 1,000 unasked questions. You adjust the mirror, breathe, and choose to wait 10 more minutes before driving home. Waiting is not wasting. It is weight training for the soul. Your solitude is like a greenhouse. Hidden from view, seeds of faith push quietly through the dark soil. No one claps for roots, but without them, no tree could stand. Your roots are growing where no one claps. Could it be that the silence you dread is the very soil where your calling matures? When God prepares a woman, He never rushes. He allows her to wrestle, to wait, to walk through nights when surrender seems impossible. And yet every choice to lean into Him becomes muscle memory for the battles ahead. Hidden work becomes visible strength, and once roots take, you'll no longer fit the pot they came in. What happens when a woman refuses to be shaped by the world's mold? The culture around her says, stay safe, stay small, follow the script, work, family, retirement, repeat. But the chosen woman feels a tug that will not let her settle. Romans chapter 12 verse 2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Her journey is not rebellion, it is obedience to a higher call. Picture this. A 62-year-old widow offered a safe role in her church, something quiet and expected. Yet every time she prays, she senses the Spirit pushing her further, to teach, to mentor, to step into new territory. Everyone else says, be content, don't overreach. But her soul is restless. Playing small is not humility, it's poor stewardship. This is why so many chosen women feel misunderstood. In the office, peers dismiss their convictions. Among friends, faith seems too much. Even family may whisper that their hunger for God is excessive. Have you felt it, that the closer you lean toward heaven, the less sense you make to the world? Her refusal to conform is not stubbornness, it is Spirit-born wisdom. Ruth left her homeland to follow Naomi, saying, "Your people will be my people and your God my God." Ruth chapter 1 verse 16. Abigail, facing crisis, chose courage and discernment over panic. 1 Samuel chapter 25. Both stepped outside the expected path, and both became part of God's unfolding story. Consider Anna the prophetess, widowed young yet waiting decades in the temple until Messiah arrived. Luke chapter 2 verses 36 to 38. Consider Elizabeth, who carried promise past the age of expectation. Luke chapter 1. Obedience made them outliers to culture but aligned them to God's timing. The chosen woman today walks that same line. Different, sometimes judged, but in rhythm with eternity. This tension cuts deep. She may try to blend in for a season, but the peace never lasts. Something always calls her back. And each surrender makes her bolder, stronger, freer. Have you dimmed your light, silencing your calling, just to be accepted? Hear this. You were not made to fit in. You were made to stand out. Courage clarifies. And strength has a cost. Watch what happens next. Strength is a strange gift. It does not come cheaply. It is forged in nights of tears, in mornings without applause, in battles no one else sees. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 31 promises, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." That strength unsettles some because it reveals what they lack. Think of Esther standing before the king, risking everything to save her people. Her courage was not arrogance, it was obedience born through fasting and prayer. In the same way, the chosen woman's firmness is not pride, it is survival. Without it, the storm she faced would have crushed her. Picture this, a woman in a small Texas church who has endured the long ache of unanswered prayers, financial loss, and betrayal. Yet when she walks into the sanctuary, she lifts her hands high, her songs steady with faith. Your steadiness exposes hurry. Your hope exposes cynicism. Your worship exposes apathy. One Sunday, her granddaughter peeks from the pew and sees Grandma on her knees, steady as stone. No drama, no spotlight, just fidelity. Strength can look quiet to the room and thunderous to the next generation. Do not apologize for resilience. Have you ever noticed how determination unsettles people? How your refusal to stay silent about truth makes others step back? This is not a flaw. It is a mark of your calling. The chosen woman may once have tried to soften her edges, to lower her voice, to act less passionate just to fit in. But the cost was her joy. God did not make her strong so she could hide. He made her strong so she could stand. This strength will not always be welcomed. Some will envy it. Some will criticize it. Some will leave. But none of that cancels the truth. Her strength is a gift from God. Like David facing Goliath, she does not need the world's approval to fight her battles. She needs only faith. That is enough. If this is for you, comment, "Seen by God." And growth, real growth, starts to rearrange rooms. Spiritual growth is both beautiful and costly. The closer a woman walks with God, the further she drifts from the world. Not because she despises people, but because her soul no longer feeds on what once satisfied. Jesus said in John chapter 15, verse 19, "You do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world." That choice changes everything. Picture this: a Wednesday night study in the church basement, styrofoam cups of coffee stacked on a folding table, a potluck sign-up sheet pinned to the wall. Years ago, she laughed easily at gossip, signed up for every casual distraction, and chased the same pleasures as her friends. But after months of early prayer and fasting, her heart longs for something deeper. When conversation turns shallow, she quietly flips the thin pages of her Bible. Some call her too serious. Others stop inviting her. What really changed? She simply outgrew what no longer nourished her soul. What fed you then will starve you now. Remember Lydia in Philippi, a businesswoman whose open heart opened her home. Acts chapter 16, verses 14 to 15. Her growth didn't make her smaller. It created space for others to flourish. This is spiritual growth for women at its best. Not withdrawal from community, but deeper hospitality shaped by presence. Think of Mary at the feet of Jesus while Martha bustled about. Mary's hunger for his presence drew her away from ordinary tasks. People may not understand why the chosen woman spends hours in prayer, why her tears fall freely in worship, why entertainment once cherished no longer appeals. But God sees. And He is pleased. This is the nature of spiritual growth for women. It clears first, then it bears. Old habits lose their grip. Old friendships fade. And sometimes she wonders, am I losing too much? But what if nothing is being lost at all? What if every removal is room making? Just as Jesus taught in John chapter 15, clearing opens the way for fruitfulness. The clearing cuts deep. She grieves over friendships dissolving. She feels misunderstood by those she still loves. Yet every layer God removes makes room for something greater. He never takes without giving more. He closes shallow doors so she can walk through eternal ones. Depth has a key, so when you hear whispers, "She's not the same anymore," remember, that is the point. You were not called to remain the same. You were called to be transformed. But the deepest clearing happens in the desert. We're going there next. Every chosen woman eventually faces the desert, a season where silence is heavy, prayers feel unanswered, and companionship grows scarce. Yet what looks like abandonment is actually refinement. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 2 reminds us that God led Israel through the wilderness to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart. In Solitude, He does the same with His daughters. Picture this: a woman driving home late on a Texas highway, the interstate almost empty, her gas gauge low. She pulls into a dimly lit station, the hum of the cooler and the buzz of the fluorescent lights her only company. Leaning against the pump, she whispers, "Lord, am I forgotten?" The night feels endless. Inside the station, a tiny radio plays "Great is Thy Faithfulness." She doesn't sing along. She just stands under the canopy, breathing diesel and night air, letting the lyrics she learned as a girl do their quiet work. Sometimes the wilderness speaks through old songs and fluorescent hums. But in that parking lot, surrounded by silence, she senses a presence stronger than the loneliness. The Spirit whispers, "You are not behind. You are being built. Think of Elijah under the broom tree, convinced his mission was finished until God's whisper broke through, not in the wind or the fire or the earthquake, but in a gentle voice. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 12. The chosen woman's desert works the same way. It strips away false strength, so she learns to lean fully on Him. Have you felt it? Those nights when the quiet feels suffocating, and you wonder if God still hears. What if the desert is not a curse but a classroom? Every unanswered prayer is a lesson in trust. Every lonely day is a rehearsal for courage. Shaping is not meant to destroy, it is meant to prepare. Like clay on the potter's wheel, her soul is pressed, stretched, and remade. It hurts. But beauty is the outcome. So if you are walking through the desert, hold steady. It is not forever. The wilderness always has an end. And when you emerge, you will carry strength that cannot be shaken, a faith that cannot be stolen, and a testimony that cannot be denied. And when you rise from this, not everyone will rise with you. Loneliness whispers, "You've been abandoned," but the Word of God answers back, "Never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you." Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5. Presence is not a feeling, it's a fact, purchased at the cross. Picture this: a widow in the Midwest, her children grown and far away. Evening settles in. She clicks off the TV, folds her hands, and whispers a prayer. At first, the silence feels unbearable. Then peace comes, like a warm blanket across her shoulders. Tears fall, and she realizes she has never prayed alone. Think of Hagar in the wilderness, cast out and certain she would die. Yet God revealed Himself as El Roi, the God who sees. Genesis chapter 16, verse 13. The chosen woman's story is no different. Every sigh is heard, every step is guided, every tear is counted. At first light, Mary Magdalene mistook Him for the gardener. John chapter 20. Dawn can blur what is most true, yet the risen Christ called her by name. Solitude is often clearest at sunrise. When Christian solitude feels endless, return to promises, not perceptions. Look back and notice. The door that closed was protection. The friend who left was pruning. The silence was schooling your faith. What seemed like abandonment was direction. Breathe. He is here. The chosen woman learns that her worth does not rest on human approval, but on her Creator's unshakable love. Faith is not anchored in feelings, but in truth. Even in the quiet, she is surrounded by His presence. So if invisibility has weighed on you, let this truth hold you steady. You are seen, you are known, and you are never truly alone. Growth is a gift, but it creates distance. As the chosen woman rises, not everyone rises with her. Some admire from afar, others feel threatened, and many quietly drift away. Amos chapter 3, verse 3 asks, "Do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so?" The truth is simple. Not everyone is meant to walk every mile of your journey. Imagine this. After a funeral, when the flowers have wilted and the casseroles are gone, she is left alone in the kitchen washing dishes. The house is silent, and the loneliness presses in. She remembers the friends who promised to stay close but quietly slipped away. It hurts, but she begins to realize this is not betrayal. It is transition. Think of Abraham walking up the mountain with Isaac. He told the servants, "Stay here while we go up." Genesis chapter 22, verse 5. Some companions are not meant for the summit. They belong only to the base of the mountain. Summits have smaller crowds. Have you ever tried to dim your passion just to keep others comfortable? Have you slowed your own growth so no one would feel left behind? The chosen woman learns the hard truth. When she rises, some will resist, some will criticize, and some will simply fade away. One evening, she scrolls her contacts and quietly moves a few threads to archive. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Love can bless at a distance. This is why she must release with blessing, not bitterness. Some relationships are seasonal. Some connections end, so new ones can begin. And though the loss stings, the freedom is necessary. Her destiny cannot be delayed by clinging to those unwilling to grow. So if you feel people slipping away, remember, it is not because you failed. It is because God is lifting you higher. Trust that those who belong to your purpose will find their way back to your side, and those who cannot will be replaced by better companions. Keep your pace holy. Now we come full circle. Loneliness was never meant to crush you. It was meant to call you deeper. Each season of solitude carries a hidden gift. Preparation in the desert, courage to break the world's patterns, strength that unsettles the shallow, spiritual growth that reshapes your relationships, God's shaping hand in silence, His constant presence beside you, and the separation that lifts you higher. What seemed like isolation was actually invitation. Romans chapter 8 verses 38 to 39 declares that nothing can separate us from the love of God. Not death, not life, not angels, not demons, not the present, not the future. If even these cannot pull you away from His presence, then surely loneliness cannot either. What once felt like a curse becomes a crown. What once felt like emptiness becomes evidence of His nearness. Think back to that late-night grocery store parking lot, receipt still in your pocket, the car quiet except for your own sighs. In that place of silence, God was already building roots where no one could see. Remember also the lonely Texas highway, the dim light of a gas station, when the Spirit whispered into the emptiness, "You are not behind, you are being built." These moments were not wasted. They were signposts of His nearness, proof that solitude is never separation. Picture this: a woman driving home down a quiet 2-lane road, headlights cutting through the dark. She feels the ache of another evening spent alone. But suddenly, worship rises in her heart, and tears fall freely. She realizes, this is not abandonment, this is communion. God is sitting in the passenger seat, closer than her breath. That is the truth every chosen woman must carry. She is never truly alone, for Christ Himself walks beside her. So what will you choose to believe about your solitude? Will you see it as punishment? Or will you embrace it as the soil where your destiny grows? Will you cling to what is fading? Or will you step boldly into what God is preparing? You were not overlooked at the church basement table. You were not forgotten when the casseroles were gone. You were not alone at the pump in the night. You are His, still, always, entirely. Here is my prayer for you. Lord, for every woman hearing these words, let her know she is seen, she is loved, she is chosen. Remind her that her solitude is not wasted but woven with purpose. Fill her with courage to walk her path with joy and strength to trust your timing. May she rise from loneliness into legacy, knowing you are with her always. Amen. Chosen doesn't mean crowded. It means close to Him. If you've been searching Bible verses for loneliness, let these promises anchor your soul. Subscribe for weekly hope and share this with one sister who needs company in her solitude.